Mr. Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is, of course, an enormous pleasure to be here in Pristina today on the eve of the great anniversary tomorrow, and to listen to the Prime Minister with the record of achievement, which I think 25 years ago would have been quite dazzling for all of us to contemplate. And yet, there is today an existential threat to the West, including the Western Balkans, by the unprovoked and illegal assault on Ukraine by President Putin of Russia. And that threat overshadows the whole continent of Europe. And the stakes in this confrontation are sky high for all of us. NATO will meet in just a few weeks' time for its 75th anniversary summit in Washington. And Ukraine will rightly be at the top of the agenda, inevitably top of the agenda. But so too will be the situation in the Western Balkans. 25 years ago, I remember very well, the transatlantic community was just recovering from the horrific violence of the implosion of Yugoslavia and the war in Bosnia. Then it was obliged to take action again in 1999 as the forces and the paramilitaries of Slobodan Milosevic attempted the ethnic cleansing of Kosovo. At that time, when I was Minister of Defence of the United Kingdom, we made our aim crystal clear. The military forces of Milosevic out, NATO in, and refugees home. We achieved all three of our objectives. After 78 days of military action and intense diplomatic activity, this country was liberated and its future as an independent, multi-ethnic state was assured. And it's hugely important to note that the involvement of the international community in that liberation has been a significant basis for the political stability on which the economic prosperity of this country and others can be built. But the Washington summit will also have to face the fact that as attention is focused on what Russia is doing in Ukraine, it will also have to look at what Russia is doing in the Western Balkans as well. Misinformation, election meddling, destabilizing, economic disruption. These are all the tools of the Russian Foreign Ministry and their agencies. Intelligence agencies and organizations are telling us that perhaps because these agencies are so incompetent, Russia is contracting out its assassinations, its sabotage, and its election interference to organized criminal gangs. All of this will focus the attention of ministers in Washington. And mostly they will be reminded about what my generation had to do in the latter part of the 20th century in this region. And they will not want a rerun of that tragedy. NATO believed that when it successfully intervened in the region, that it had provided the essential stability for a secure economic future. But it left the rest of the story to the people of the region themselves. The future of this region is in the hands of the people themselves and those that they elect to represent them. There is so much that is attractive about this region. The tenacity and the bravery of the people has been tested and is proven. There are low-cost but yet able and talented workers. The region is at the heart of a market of 20 million people. There is promise in this region and for its people. And the region can and should diversify, as the Prime Minister has said, into information technology, into renewable energy and tourism. It needs to make further investment in education and to listen to the business community, which is already here, and those that it wants to attract from outside as well. Collaboration on labour mobility is crucially important. Borders are out of date. Just look at what the single market did for the European Union itself. And the stability of national institutions is crucial. The rule of law, anti-corruption laws and action, and transparency of processes are all crucially important. I tell a story, which I tell to you today, of when the first post-Milosevic Minister of Foreign Affairs came to NATO headquarters, Goran Svilanovic. And he said at the press conference at the end of his visit, he said, "Can I say to you members of the press, can you imagine how prosperous the Balkans would be today if we politicians had the same degree of interethnic cooperation as the criminals?" And I leave that thought with you as well. This region faces another existential challenge: the migration of the young, the best and the brightest now working in London and Berlin and New York. The drain of people, and especially the young and the talented, will leave any nation denuded of its future seed corn, and it has to be addressed. Overcoming the kind of challenges and horrors inflicted on Kosovo show what the spirit of cooperation, tolerance, and compromise can achieve. It can do so again in the future for the sake of the next generation. Thank you for your attention.